Apparently, making 2 of these movies and the second one shitting the bed wasn't enough. And me talking about them wasn't enough either. Because today, as you can tell from the title, I'm going to be rambling about Highlander 3. So, I've already reviewed the first 2 Highlander movies on my channel. If you haven't seen those videos already, I'd recommend watching them before this one. To summarise though, I really like the original Highlander. I saw it a few times as a kid, and upon rewatching it for my review, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The second movie, however, fails to be a successful sequel in pretty much every way a sequel can fail to do so. This is partially because of inherent issues with the premise, like retconning previously established lore, but the studio allegedly did mess with the movie. I discussed this in more detail in my original review. The movie we're discussing today is known by several names, 2 of which being the Sorcerer and the Final Dimension, and I've seen both be used on posters, but I'm using the one that came up the most when I looked this movie up. Anyways, without further ado, on with the review.
Polos is life, 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 sleep all night and then Polos is life.
Just as a note, this movie ignores everything in the second movie, so you don't have to worry too much about that when trying to understand its story. It begins with Connor briefly discussing how Ramirez and Heather died in the first movie, and how, before he went to New York or picked up Rachel, he went to Japan. Okay, this movie is taking the weeaboo route. There are some opening credits over someone making a sword, that person being Nakano, apparently someone who knew and helped Ramirez during his time in Japan. Nakano is played by the legendary Mako, who played Akiro in the first 2 Conan movies. He's so cool. Nakano warns Connor about this character called Kane, who is our equivalent of the Kurgan in this movie. It then cuts to a scene where our villains raid a village, I suppose to show how evil they are. It does the trick, but it's not a very imaginative way of doing so in my opinion. There was a village raid scene in the aforementioned Conan movies, so I was weirdly expecting this when I heard Mako was in this film. It just didn't surprise me. Nakano trains Connor in the typical kung fu movie fashion, and there are a lot of strange effects and cuts, I guess to make the visuals more interesting, but I think they more so pull you a bit out of the action. He does some tricks like illusions, and this makes me think that he is supposed to be the Sorcerer mentioned in one of the alternative titles. One night, Nakano tells Connor to leave, and Kane, along with his 2 henchmen, arrive to kill Nakano. Connor runs in to save the day, and then gets wrecked, meaning that Nakano has to do some shadow clone jutsu to take on the 3 evil guys. This battle ends super quickly, which just feels like a waste of time because it was essentially a fanfiction style recreation of flashback scenes from the first movie. They know this too because they literally just throw in footage from said scene being ripped off. Nakano's head starts talking and gloating about how there will be only one, but it won't be Kane, and the quickening causes the cave they're in to collapse. Connor manages to escape, but Kane and his henchmen are trapped inside. This could be explained by the fact that Nakano is a wizard on top of being an immortal, but it was so weird. The film then cuts to 1994, where an excavation led by this film's love interest, Alexandra Johnson, releases Kane and his goons. One of the henchmen goes to search for Connor, and Kane just beheads the other, because there can be only one and he's a twat. This is why the Kurgan was more of a lone wolf character, because these types just can't work with others, but I suppose they had to do something to make the characters distinct from each other. Psst, it's not working very well. Meanwhile, Connor has moved to Marrakesh and adopted a kid called John. Connor feels the return of the quickening because Kane has awoken, and just leaves? Kind of a dickhead move, right? First he ditches his, albeit adult adopted daughter in New York, and then adopts another kid in Marrakesh, and he leaves him too. This is causing layers and layers of trauma for these kids, man, and this will never be addressed. The bodies and sword at the excavation site are found, and Alexandra takes a sample from the sword, saying she doesn't believe it's a copy. Just like Brenda in the original film. Come on guys, put some effort in! Connor returns to New York and gets shot by some gang, but while being transported through hospital, he starts healing himself and tries to fight off the doctors, leading to him being sedated and carted off to a mental health ward. Predictably, this is to get Connor on his own so that we can get another fight scene. The patient next to Connor believes that he is Napoleon, so Connor roleplays as his favourite soldier, in order to get him to undo his restraints. This leads to a giant commotion amongst the real patients, giving Connor a distraction which allows him to escape. He goes to fight Kane's remaining henchmen in another short-lived battle with undeservedly overdramatic music playing in the background. The body is discovered shortly after, and once again, Connor, or his alias, Russell Nash, is suspected to be the culprit. While at home, Connor catches a news report featuring Alexandra, who bears a striking resemblance to another love interest, called Sarah, who is from England but is staying in France during the late 1700s. Why is this necessary? What is this, Dracula? Alexandra goes to New York, and through her research discovers a legend about Connor MacLeod and his exile. Is this a known legend in this universe now? This doesn't really make sense to me, as while they leave things behind, Immortals seemed much more like a secret society type group. Brenda had pretty much the exact same role in the original film, and didn't seem to have any idea of this kind of thing before meeting Connor. Kane catches up to Connor, right as Alexandra finds him to question him about the MacLeod clan, and they have a sword fight. Apparently, the place they're in is a Buddhist shrine, and Kane just doesn't care? That's so mad to me. The Kurgan cared, and even General Katana cared. Thankfully, there is a consequence for this, as Connor's sword shatters. So, Kane turns into a bird and flies away? Why didn't he just kill him? Did he get scared? I thought he didn't care. Connor scarpers off, and the lieutenant from earlier arrives just in time to find Alexandra there on her own. We learn through some exposition from him that Brenda was killed off in a car accident a year after the original film's events. This is so trashy to me. At least she got a death scene in the second movie, even if it was obviously not the same actress. Also, how is that necessarily Connor's fault? It's a car accident. It just seems like the lieutenant wants someone to be mad at. Back in 18th century France, Connor has been arrested during the revolution, and is going to be decapitated. His friend decides that he's had enough of being immortal, so takes his place, but Sarah really does believe that Connor has died. A few years later, Connor is a free man, and finds her, but discovers that she has started a family. Well, that was short-lived, wasn't it? This just isn't as hard-hitting as Heather's death in the first movie. We don't really see them living together or anything like that. Connor goes back to his old home to try and forge another sword, but he fails without Nakano's magic plate thing. I don't know anything about sword making, okay? I apologise. Conveniently, it's brought to him by Alexandra, who has followed him across the world. Naturally, these two get together, but while they're at a pub, Connor gets a call from his friend in Marrakesh, telling him that John has left for New York upon Connor's request, although Connor didn't have such a conversation. So that's why he adopted a new kid, because he's a convenient victim for the plot, so that we don't need to use Alexandra to do the damsel in distress thing again. That would be copying the original movie a bit too much, of course. Obviously, this is Kane's doing. But before Connor can rescue John from a disguised Kane, he is arrested in the airport. Obviously, the police can't pin anything on Connor, so they release him. He goes to confront Kane and rescue John, but Kane has some tricks up his sleeve. They fight, and he impersonates Alexandra, which leads to him getting a hold of Connor's sword. Dr. Feelgood by Motley Crue starts playing in the background too? What is happening? Where are the Queen songs? I'm in shock right now. Long story short, Connor is able to kill Kane, but it's super anticlimactic. We kind of already know what to expect from the Quickening in a final kill like this. It's not special at all. John, now free from Kane's magic, is reunited with Connor and they remain in Scotland with Alexandra. It's not too difficult to see what this movie was trying to do. It was trying not to deviate too much from the original film's lore, as doing so with the previous movie was evidently a horrible decision. I don't think anyone can deny that. They wanted to recreate the magic, so to speak, that was the success of the original Highlander. The filmmakers went a bit too far in the opposite direction though. In a review by the BBC from 2000, they say that Highlander 3 is really a copy of the first one. I pointed out some examples that show this during my commentary, but there are so many that I didn't want to just keep repeating myself. The love interest is an archaeologist who is suspicious of and researches Connor's background after looking at a sword at a crime scene. Connor was going to be executed, but escaped at the last moment, and the villain, Kane, is literally just the Kurgan with magic powers. He even has the same gravelly voice.
I'm Candy.
Of course you are. This is a Buddhist shrine, Kane, and we can't fight on holy ground.
Oh, well. I guess I'll be the judge of that.
And why is there so much emphasis on this new lost love interest? What about the ones we actually cared about, like Heather or Brenda? It feels so cheap. On top of all of this, although Japan was mentioned in the original movie, the setting change and all that come across as kind of weeaboo-ish. We barely spend any time there before we go back to Scotland and New York, and there's an exchange that just makes me think of your typical anime nerds at school.
Konnichiwa, Alex-san. O hisachiburi desu.
Konnichiwa, Takamura-san. Ikaga desu ka?
Hi, domo. The Archaeological Commission is waiting. The owner of the corporation is threatening to shut us down so he can continue his foundations.
I know this was the 90s, but as a Zoomer, I can't help but read the scene that way. And as I said earlier, where are the Queen songs? You know, the ones that were made with Highlander in mind? Maybe I'm biased because I love Queen, but throwing in an unrelated song about a drug dealer during the climax of the movie wasn't the greatest decision. Because of all of these things, the movie just comes across like someone wrote a fan fiction about Highlander, and then the studio just gave them money to make a film based on the fan fiction. I wouldn't say that this is the worst Highlander movie I've seen yet. It's better than the second one, but it is also a frustrating watch, just in a different way. It just feels like an unnecessary film. Just watch the first one, it does everything this one does 10 times better. Well, that's all for this video. Be sure to follow me on social media as they are all linked in my description box. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.
The blue and green ones are my favorite kind, but I'll eat the colored ones from time to time. Cause Polos is life, 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 Polos is life. Sleep all night